Imagine waking up one day and realizing that the biggest obstacle in your life is you. The patterns that keep repeating, the relationships that fail, the opportunities that slip through your fingers. What if all of it was being controlled by a part of you that you don't even know exists? This hidden force is called the shadow self, a concept developed by Carl Jung, and whether you realize it or not, it shapes your thoughts, your emotions, and even your destiny. But what exactly is the shadow? And more importantly, how do you confront it before it takes complete control? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see yourself in a way you never have before. Part 1. What is the shadow self? The shadow self is everything you repress, deny, or ignore about yourself. It's not just your darkest thoughts or hidden flaws. It's also your unexpressed emotions, repressed desires, and even strengths you refuse to acknowledge. Carl Jung believed that from childhood, we start shaping an identity based on what is socially acceptable. We learn what earns us love, praise, or validation, and we push aside the parts of ourselves that don't fit. If you were punished for crying, you may have buried your sensitivity. If you were told to always be polite, you may have suppressed your anger. Over time, these rejected parts don't disappear. They sink into the unconscious, forming what Jung called the shadow. But the shadow doesn't just sit there. It influences your decisions, triggers emotional reactions, and even manifests in your relationships. The traits you deny in yourself often appear in others, making you judge or resent them without realizing you're actually projecting. Ever hated someone for being arrogant, yet failed to see your own pride? Or looked down on someone's weakness while secretly fearing your own vulnerability? That's the shadow in action. But here's the truth most people ignore. Your shadow isn't your enemy. It holds immense power, creativity, and even wisdom. The very things you suppress could be the key to your personal growth. But first, you have to bring them to light. Part 2. Signs your shadow self is controlling you. Most people think they're fully in control of their actions, but the truth is, the shadow often runs the show from behind the scenes. The problem? If you don't recognize its influence, it manifests in destructive ways. Here are the biggest signs your shadow self is controlling you. 1. You keep repeating toxic patterns. Ever notice how you attract the same kind of unhealthy relationships, or how you keep making the same mistakes, no matter how much you try to change? That's not a coincidence. It's your shadow at work. The parts of yourself you refuse to confront will keep showing up in your life until you finally acknowledge them. For example, if you always fall for emotionally unavailable partners, your shadow might be hiding a fear of intimacy. If you sabotage opportunities, it could be buried self-doubt whispering that you're not good enough. The shadow doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It finds ways to force itself into your reality. 2. You judge others harshly. The things that trigger you in others often reveal what you deny in yourself. If you despise arrogance, could it be because you secretly crave confidence, but have been taught to suppress it? If laziness frustrates you, could it be that you push yourself too hard and resent those who allow themselves to rest? Jung called this projection, when you disown certain traits within yourself and see them reflected in others. The more intense your reaction, the more likely it's a part of your shadow. 3. You struggle with strong emotional reactions. Ever had an over-the-top reaction to something small? Maybe someone criticized you and you felt an uncontrollable rage, or a minor rejection sent you spiraling into self-doubt. When emotions feel disproportionate to the situation, your shadow is likely behind the wheel. Unresolved wounds don't stay buried forever. They leak out in moments of stress, conflict, or vulnerability. Your shadow thrives on repression until the pressure builds up and explodes. 4. You wear a mask around others. Do you feel like you're constantly performing, acting the way you think others expect you to? Maybe you hide your sadness behind humor, pretend to be confident when you feel insecure, or play the role of the responsible one, even when you're overwhelmed. Jung called this mask the persona, the version of yourself you present to the world. But when your persona is too far removed from your true self, it creates inner tension. You may feel exhausted, disconnected, or like you don't truly know who you are. The more you suppress your shadow, the harder it fights to be seen. That's why embracing it is the first step toward real self-awareness and transformation. Part 3. The dangers of ignoring your shadow. Ignoring your shadow doesn't make it disappear, it makes it stronger. What you refuse to face in yourself will eventually find a way to control you, often in the most destructive ways. Here's what happens when you suppress your shadow for too long. 1. Self-sabotage becomes inevitable. You set goals, make plans, and tell yourself you're ready for success. But just when things start going well, something inside you pulls the rug out from under your feet. Maybe you procrastinate, make reckless decisions, or push away the very opportunities you worked for. This isn't just bad luck, it's your shadow. If a part of you believes you're unworthy of happiness, that part will find ways to prove itself right. The more you ignore it, the stronger its grip becomes. 2. Repressed emotions turn into anxiety and depression. Emotions don't vanish just because you bury them. Instead, they manifest as stress, anxiety, or even depression. If you've ever felt a deep sense of unease without knowing why, it might be because your shadow is holding on to unresolved pain. Psychologists have found that suppressed emotions often show up in the body: chronic fatigue, tension, or even illness. Your mind might try to hide your shadow, but your body always keeps score. 3. You attract the wrong people. Have you ever wondered why you keep ending up in toxic relationships? It's not just bad luck. It's your subconscious choosing people who reflect your unhealed wounds. For example, if you grew up feeling unseen, you might unconsciously be drawn to people who neglect you. If you suppress your anger, you might attract partners who express it for you, often in destructive ways. Until you integrate your shadow, you'll keep repeating these painful cycles. 4. You lose touch with your true self. When you spend your life rejecting parts of yourself, you slowly start to forget who you really are. You become whatever others expect you to be, wearing different masks depending on the situation. But deep down, you feel lost, disconnected from your own desires, emotions, and identity. This is why shadow work isn't just about healing, it's about reclaiming yourself. The parts of you that scare you the most might be the very things that make you powerful. But to access that power, you first have to face the darkness. Part 4. Embracing the shadow for personal transformation. The journey of facing your shadow might feel daunting, but the rewards are life-changing. Integrating the darker parts of yourself isn't just about healing, it's about becoming the fullest version of who you're meant to be. Here's how embracing your shadow leads to profound transformation. 1. You unlock your true potential. The shadow is not just about darkness, it holds hidden potential. Jung believed that the qualities we repress are often the very traits that can lead us to greatness. Creativity, strength, assertiveness, these are all qualities that might be buried deep within you. When you embrace your shadow, you access talents and capabilities you didn't even know you had. Imagine walking through life with a full set of tools to handle any challenge. That's what happens when you face your fears and integrate the parts of you that were once denied. You cultivate authenticity and confidence. Living authentically requires knowing yourself, every part of you, even the parts that aren't so pretty. When you make peace with your shadow, you no longer need to wear a mask. You become comfortable in your own skin, allowing your true self to shine through. This leads to deep-rooted confidence. You know you're not perfect, but you accept every aspect of who you are. And that's where real strength lies, not in being flawless, but in embracing the entirety of your humanity. 3. You heal past wounds and break free from cycles. When you face your shadow, you're not just healing the present moment, you're also healing past trauma. The wounds you carry from childhood, relationships, and difficult experiences are often hidden in the shadow. By working through these aspects, you free yourself from the patterns of self-sabotage, victimhood, and unhealthy relationships. You stop repeating the same mistakes and break free from the toxic cycles that have held you captive for years. 4. You become a powerful creator of your reality. One of the most profound effects of shadow work is that it gives you control over your life. Instead of reacting to life's challenges, you begin to consciously create your reality. By integrating your shadow, you develop a sense of agency. You no longer feel like a victim of your emotions or circumstances. Instead, you recognize your power to make choices and shape your future. When you accept the shadow, you also accept the responsibility for your own life. You are no longer controlled by unconscious patterns. You become the master of your own fate. Part 5. The darkness in others and the world around you. As you journey deeper into your own shadow, you'll begin to notice the reflection of that darkness in the world around you, whether in other people, societal structures, or global events. This isn't a coincidence. The external world is often a mirror of what's unresolved within us. Jung taught that the collective unconscious holds shared elements of human experience, including the shadow. When we ignore our personal darkness, we project it onto others, creating conflict, misunderstandings, and even hatred. But when we embrace our shadow, we learn to see the humanity in others. 1. Recognizing the shadow in others. You've probably encountered people whose behavior triggers strong reactions in you. Feelings of anger, fear, or even disgust. Jung believed that these strong reactions to others often reflect aspects of our own shadow that we have not integrated. For example, someone's arrogance might trigger feelings of inferiority in you. That feeling of superiority you experience might be a projection of your own unresolved issues with self-worth. When you recognize this, you stop blaming others for your emotions and instead turn inward to examine what part of yourself is being reflected in the other person. By doing this, you stop seeing others as the source of your discomfort and start seeing them as teachers who are helping you uncover parts of yourself you've been avoiding. Shadow in society and systems. Beyond personal interactions, the shadow also manifests in larger societal issues like systemic inequality, environmental degradation, and political corruption. These issues aren't just the result of a few bad actors, they are symptoms of a collective shadow. Jung suggested that societies, just like individuals, have unconscious aspects that are ignored or denied. This collective shadow influences cultural norms, policies, and even global conflicts. When individuals and groups ignore their shadow, these negative qualities get projected outward, perpetuating cycles of injustice, oppression, and environmental destruction. However, as individuals work to heal their personal shadows, they begin to change their communities and ultimately the world. 3. The importance of compassion. One of the most powerful lessons you learn through shadow work is the value of compassion. The more you embrace your own darkness, the more you can empathize with the struggles of others. Instead of seeing them as the other or judging them for their flaws, you understand that they, too, are on their own journey of integration. Compassion doesn't mean excusing harmful behavior, but it means understanding the root causes of those behaviors, whether they stem from trauma, insecurity, or repressed emotions. By recognizing the shadow in others, you no longer need to demonize them or react in anger. Instead, you can approach situations with empathy and a desire for healing. 4. The role of the shadow in global events. On a global scale, shadow work can help us understand major world events and crises. War, violence, racism, and even climate change are not just the result of individual actions. They are expressions of a collective failure to confront our darkness. Jung argued that until humanity as a whole begins to acknowledge and integrate its collective shadow, these issues will continue to surface. The more we repress or deny the darker parts of ourselves, the more they will manifest externally, causing conflict and suffering. But the good news is that as more individuals do their shadow work, the collective unconscious begins to shift. This shift can lead to positive changes in the world around us as people become more self-aware, compassionate, and open to healing. Part 6. Embracing wholeness, the final step in shadow work. The journey of shadow work is not an easy one, but it's one of the most profound and transformative paths you can take. As you work through your darkness, you come to a powerful realization. You are not just the light, and you are not just the dark. You are both. You are whole. 1. Integration, not perfection. One of the most common misconceptions about shadow work is that it's about eliminating or eradicating the dark parts of ourselves. But that's not the goal. The goal is integration. Integration means accepting the shadow as part of who you are, acknowledging that you are not a perfect being, but a whole one, complete with light and dark aspects. This is the essence of Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming your truest self by integrating all parts of your psyche. You stop seeing yourself as good or bad, right or wrong and start embracing the complexity and depth of your humanity. You stop fighting with yourself. You stop pretending to be someone you're not. And in doing so, you find a deeper sense of peace, balance, and authenticity. The power of self-awareness. As you integrate your shadow, you begin to live with a higher level of self-awareness. You stop being reactive to your emotions and impulses. You no longer let your unconscious patterns dictate your behavior. Instead, you observe your thoughts, feelings, and reactions with compassion and clarity. This awareness allows you to make conscious choices rather than being driven by hidden desires or fears. You begin to understand why you do the things you do and why you react the way you do. This gives you the power to change. It's important to note that integration doesn't mean you'll never experience negative emotions or behaviors again. It means that when you do, you'll recognize them for what they are, and you'll have the tools to handle them consciously. 3. Living authentically. The more you embrace your shadow, the more authentic you become. You stop pretending to be someone you're not in order to meet the expectations of others. You embrace your true nature, flaws and all. And in doing so, you create the space to be loved and accepted for who you truly are. Not for the persona you've crafted, but for the real you. Living authentically doesn't mean living without fear or difficulty. It means living with courage to face your fears, to embrace your vulnerability, and to stand firmly in your truth, no matter what. It means letting go of the need to be perfect and accepting that you are a work in progress. 4. The impact on relationships. As you work through your shadow, you'll notice that your relationships begin to shift. The more you heal, the more you're able to show up authentically for others. You no longer need to protect yourself behind walls or facades. You can be open, honest, and vulnerable. In relationships, this leads to deeper connection and understanding. When you accept your own darkness, you stop expecting others to be perfect. Instead, you accept them as they are, with all their flaws and imperfections. This leads to more authentic, compassionate, and loving relationships. 5. Healing the collective. The work you do on yourself also contributes to healing the world around you. As more and more people engage in shadow work, we move closer to a world where we no longer fear or reject our darkness. We stop projecting our shadows onto others, and instead, we start to see each other with empathy and understanding. By doing the inner work, you become a part of the collective healing. Your journey toward wholeness is not just personal, it is a contribution to the collective consciousness. Number 6. Embracing the journey, not the destination. The most important thing to remember as you go through this process is that shadow work is not a one-time task. It's a lifelong journey. As you evolve and grow, new aspects of your shadow will emerge, and you will have the opportunity to integrate them as well. Rather than seeing this work as something to finish or complete, see it as an ongoing process of discovery and growth. The more you embrace your whole self, the more you become aligned with your true purpose, and the more you experience freedom and peace. Conclusion: your journey to wholeness. By embracing the shadow, you not only transform your own life, but also contribute to a more compassionate and understanding world. The journey is not easy, but the rewards are profound. You become more authentic, more compassionate, and more in tune with who you truly are. The shadow is not something to fear or reject. It is a part of you. And by embracing it, you open the door to profound personal growth, deep healing, and a life of greater authenticity and fulfillment. So, are you ready to embark on the journey of shadow work? The darkness may seem daunting at first, but in that darkness, you'll find the light of your truest self.